Hey guys, welcome to the VIP Financial Ed YouTube channel. I'm your host today, Michael Matthew. We've got a great episode with some very special guests that you guys may recognize. I want to kind of kick this off today by just talking about real estate in general, guys. You know, unless you've been living under a rock for recent history here, we're all pretty much aware that the real estate market has gone through the roof, and many markets we would consider kind of an incendiary. Doesn't appear to be some major drop off that in sight. The Fed is obviously, there's rumblings about interest rates going up, which is obviously going to affect home prices and kind of cool it off a little bit. But that being said, we're still at a lack of inventory. If you are out trying to buy a house right now, supplies are through the roof. We've got institutional players like BlackRock and Blackstone that are coming out there and deploying billions and billions of dollars in capital. They don't have any contingencies, obviously, on financing. They're paying above list price many times, 10 to 20% higher. And in many cases, they're buying up entire neighborhoods. That has a trickle-down effect, guys. So that we're talking about first-time home buyers. We're talking about owner-occupant buyers. Another story for another day. Today, we're going to focus on what that means for investors. So as an investor right now, and we talk to them all the time, it's how the heck do you make money in today's blazing hot real estate market unless you've got A, your own portfolio to leverage, B, you've got phenomenal credit that you can leverage, or C, you've got OPM that you can use, whether that's friends and family, whether you use the debt weapons we talk about here on the channel, whether it's the private lending. We'll drop some links to those below, how to go out there and access that type of capital. Now, guys, my background is real estate. I can tell you firsthand that there's always ways to make money in real estate. It doesn't matter if the market's hot, cold, everything in between. You just have to know what you're doing, where to look, how to look, kind of what to say. But today we're going to talk specifically about the short-term rental space, and we're going to show you an amazing strategy that you can utilize to get involved in this space with little to no money up front and not having to leverage your credit. Ultimately, you're not even owning the properties. So the short-term or STR space is one of the most popular and really kind of explosive real estate asset investment classes out there right now. It's one of my personal favorites. We've done multiple videos on this subject matter over the last couple of years, but it's a great way for investors to be active in real estate right now without the major financial barriers to entry. What if you can make thousands or 10,000 of dollars every single month by simply learning how and implementing the setup of an Airbnb property for someone else? Well, folks, that's what we're here to show you about today. We've got two very special guests that are experts in this field. They're going to talk to you about really their phenomenal business model, how to get involved with them, what that looks like. Ultimately, if you stick through to the end of the episode, they're going to share a couple of their tips and tricks that have helped them become seven-figure hosts, which is just a phenomenal plateau, phenomenal benchmark for them. And with that being said, guys, welcome back. We've got Michael and Katrina, founders of BNB Bootcamp. It's been a while since we've had you here on the channel, but you, of course, are back by popular demand. How are you?
Thank you very much for having us, Michael. Yeah, it's been a while, so we're happy to have been invited back to have another discussion and share everything that's going on in the STR space. It's definitely evolved a lot over the last several months here, so happy to chat about that.
Yeah, fantastic. And we've got a great interview testimonial with one of your students that just graduated, already has a couple properties under their belt, husband and wife team. Really looking forward to that as well. So let's kind of talk about just a little bit of the basics of Airbnb. Guys, if you have not seen them on the channel here, we're going to go ahead and drop their playlist below. If you have seen them, you know you're already interested in what they have to offer, go ahead and email bnbbootcamp@vipfinancialeducation.com. We're going to go ahead and drop that email below, include your first, your last name, and the best phone number to reach you at. And Michael and Katrina will be back in touch with you as quickly as possible. So what's the state of the union with STRs, guys?
Lots going on, Matthew. Like, I mean, for us, it feels a lot like Christmas. Like Christmas has continued and it's been pretty phenomenal with a lot of the growth we've seen personally, but a lot with our students. So I mean, just globally what's happening, the pandemic is turning, I guess, more to an endemic. Like there's been a lot of shifts in a lot of countries, and we're so proud of, a lot of our students that have gotten a lot of properties because they've been primed and ready to go for, the opening up of travel, a lot of restrictions coming down, and it's just exciting time.
And it's really interesting because you mentioned at the start of the video that, traditional real estate techniques like buy and hold, sourcing properties, that's become a more challenging story because just how much prices have escalated, particularly in the last 12 months. So you mentioned, leveraging different debt weapons, having credit, OPM, all of those different things. What we really focus on in particular is, although those tools are valuable, we've specialized in showing people OPP, is leveraging other people's properties without having to actually own and assume control of them in that sense, right?
Yeah.
You guys have an amazing arbitrage. It's really kind of an accelerated arbitrage and partnership program that is part of your coaching. It's really exciting. I've not seen anything like it. Arbitrage and partnerships have been around for a while, but you guys kind of spin on that and relating it to the STR space has been really just remarkable. I've got some stats here, and you can get this just right off Airbnb. So obviously the growth is just explosive. So right now there's 2.9 million active hosts worldwide, 14,000 new hosts each month, 7 million listings worldwide. And there's 100,000 cities across the world that have listings with Airbnb. And guys, that's just one of the booking sites that are out there. Airbnb and really VRBO are going to be kind of the two biggest ones that have almost turned into a verb at this point. I'm going to Airbnb it, I'm going to VRBO it, but there's other booking sites out there. That's just phenomenal data. 220 different countries are doing short-term rentals right now. Now, Airbnb has been around since 2009, so it's not some new phenomenon necessarily, but the way that people are traveling and working, I think, like you said, based on the pandemic or, potentially endemic, has really just changed the way that people are looking at really that travel experience. It's getting into a little bit more of, kind of a personal approach, obviously smaller groups, staying out of, big hotels and convention centers like we used to in the past. I don't see that slowing down. Are you guys seeing that through a different lens? You guys are on the front lines.
Yeah, and a stat on there as well is like, yes, there's a lot of increasing hosts on the platform, but the increasing amount of guests on the platform is huge. So I don't know if you've seen it, but we've definitely seen there's a lot of ads from Airbnb, from VRBO, attracting hosts to the platform to try and meet this demand. Because a lot of people have shifted from hotels over to Airbnb, short-term rentals, and it's been huge. I think there was an announcement back in,
I think it was April and May.
There was April as a spring and winter version, and they mentioned people are now living on Airbnb. Like, the pandemic has changed people's lives forever. I mean, people are working remotely from anywhere, but it's not just one person. It's not the business traveler. It's families moving together and living on different platforms and all coming together. So it's been a big shift that we've seen. Ironically, we're in the short-term rental business, but we have quite a few long-term rentals with people in there for months because they're living here for a job or, here for family, because they can work from anywhere in the world.
A question on that. So with your long-term rental portfolio, are you guys planning on converting those to short-term once your leases are up?
Well, let me clarify. So long-term rentals, really what we should be saying is long-term guests.
Long-term guests. Long-term guests.
On the short-term rentals.
Yeah. So
okay.
We have so at this time, when this is being recorded, we're currently managing 41 properties. I would say about a third of our portfolio is long-term stay. So we'll define that as anything longer than a month. So 30 days and up, sometimes several months. We've had bookings for 6 months, 8 months, sometimes
on the Airbnb platform.
On the Airbnb platform,
right? So they're looking for executive rentals, houses that the family can stay at for 5 months, 6 months, and
sure.
They're utilizing Airbnb, VRBO, and these short-term rental platforms and paying that premium, right, for that flexibility.
Yeah, so about a third would be longer term guests. The other third, I would say, is kind of that midterm stay. So 2 weeks up to a month. And then the last third would just be short term, so a week or less. But particularly in the last, I would say, 6 months, we've definitely seen a much larger amount. Like, the longer term portfolio is starting to increase. The amount of guests booking long term is definitely something that's different than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. So it kind of brings me to a question here that I hadn't thought of. Are you guys focused more on the business versus kind of just the personal, just general consumer side? And if so, how do you differentiate in your marketing? And then how do you decide which markets you guys are going to do that in? Because I know that you guys can do your business remotely. You could live in, Seattle, Washington, and you could manage Airbnbs on someone else's behalf in Miami, Florida. So what do you like better between that business and kind of consumer space? And then if you could answer kind of the second part of that as well.
Yeah, so I think it's really important, and this is something we talk a lot about in the BNB Bootcamp, especially for people that are brand new, is that you want to, Stephen Covey talks about in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you want to begin with the end in mind, right? So what that means is, well, there's a few different dynamics to that, but one of the things you want to think about is when you're getting into this business, what kind of guest and what kind of customer do you want to work with, and what kind of people do you want to attract?
Like what excites you, right? What gets you up in the morning? And I think that's a big thing. And that's part of, our coaching. And like the very first thing that we go through is like the ultimate scenarios. Like, what do you really want, right? Like what do you want to attract? And that's really huge. So when we're looking at this, for us in our particular portfolio, we attract a lot of families, right? In our personal one. And we've done it for a few reasons of why, like particularly in our market, condos, it's very easy to actually get shut down in condos in our area due to HOAs, due to provincial legislation. There is a lot of condos that, don't get me wrong, but you can get shut down. So for us, I mean, the money is in more heads and beds, a lot of it, right? So more people. So we love bigger houses. We're in a house. We love like large kind of real estate. So that's what we wanted to build our portfolio around. We have other students that just do corporate housing and business travelers only, and only focus on 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and have corporate housing and specifically market towards that.
Yeah. So some students, and again, there's no right or wrong answer to this. It is purely dependent on what kind of vision do you have, what kind of business do you want to build, and what kind of client or guest do you want to cater towards. Some students, they want to go into apartment complexes, lease several units on the same floor, and just have like kind of more of a centralized business in that manner,
like only at downtowns or any kind of accessibility. And then other people don't even want to be at downtowns. They do unique properties, they do farm stays, they do tiny homes. I mean, we just had an interview with Jacob and Ivana. They are renting out their RV, right? Like there's a lot of different ways you can do this. So I think a big thing is just kind of really having that focus and idea, but also what we go through, with our coaching and training is we run the numbers and we show you how to run the numbers, and you can make that, a financial decision of which one makes most sense. We like to call it the headache to income ratio. So we like to get the biggest bang for your buck. Would you rather have 10 properties, making 20,000 a month, or would you rather have 100 properties making 20,000 a month, right? Clearly the first option.
Yeah,
totally makes sense. I would rather have, far fewer, tenants in any of my properties. It's less headaches, less people to deal with. You mentioned something about regulations permitting. So I know that there's a lot of rumblings. I mean, there's a lot of markets right now that used to be great for STR, like Miami, for example. And I mentioned that earlier in the video. It's getting, you're almost regulated out of there right now, which you would think would be a phenomenal STR space. Same thing with, Lake Tahoe, for example. There's some things happening in Palm Springs, which used to be one of the top markets, that are kind of permitting and regulating people out of that if they're not zoned STR. You guys walk folks through that. They're not playing some guessing game when they're coming on board and trying to go out there and do legal research into an industry that they're just now getting involved in. That's part of the handholding process, correct?
100% right. And this is one of the crucial elements that we walk people through initially as we guide them through our bootcamp training. So there's a few things you want to keep in mind here, because you're exactly right. There are some areas that are becoming inherently more difficult to do business in, almost to the point where it may not even be possible in certain areas, whereas other areas are starting to introduce regulations. So a couple of things we want to think about as we're going through that. So really, there's multiple levels of what regulation and laws and things can look like. There can be laws at the state or provincial level that guide and govern short-term rentals. So for example, where we live in Edmonton, Alberta, the reason why we don't focus a lot on condo type units is because, well, they have a law that gives
a provincial
law that gives property management companies unilateral power to ban short-term rentals overnight without a vote,
without anything with a board. They can just like wipe it out overnight. So that's very, we try to look at the risk versus reward, and it's a lot of work to set up a short-term rental. And if you could be wiped out overnight, like it's not worth it for us for that.
So that's one element. Then it can come down to the city level, right? So it would be different ordinances, bylaws, different rules that, govern it on a city level. So we want to be aware of what that looks like. It could be, you might only be able to rent a place up to 6 months a year. You might only be able to have a certain amount of people in the property. You might have to have a business license, or you might have to remit taxes to the local taxing authority.
There could be zoning as well, specific, in that city and different zones in it. So it's very important to start breaking these down and definitely knowing before you, 100% before you buy a property, if you're going to buy in the purpose of an investment property, but also before you set up a property too, because like I said, it is a lot of work to set up a property and just to be shut down the next day. It's just that risk. You got to, you really got to balance that out.
One of the things we talk about with this too is that we actually like, if we can find markets where it could just be as simple as a business license and remitting taxes.
Or a zone is actually really good too.
That's actually a really good sign, because one of the things we've learned is that if there's markets, for example, where there may not be specific short-term rental laws, this comes from a colleague of ours, Richard Furtek. He says, just because there may not be laws in place doesn't mean that it's lawful. It just means it hasn't been regulated yet.
Right.
So we learned this ourselves personally. We set up in a market. It was a suburb actually just outside of Edmonton here. And there's no
laws.
There's absolutely no rules governing short-term rentals, because there wasn't that many listings to begin with.
It's a small little town. I think there was 30 Airbnbs, right?
Yeah. So long story short, without getting into all the details, what ended up happening was we were doing really well on this house, but very simple. The neighbors just didn't like the fact that there was a short-term rental in the neighborhood.
People coming in and out. There was no cops ever called, no parties. Like, we were very stringent about this. We go through this in the training, how to vet, how to have cameras, security, everything like that. We were following everything to a book. The neighbors just didn't like that it was a short-term rental. They didn't like the people coming in and out, and different people.
So it ended up going all the way up to city council. Katrina and I actually had to present to that neighborhood city council. Well, not neighborhood, but the city council for the entire city. For the entire.
Do you have a video of that by chance that you can send?
We should be able to find.
I think we do have a recording.
I think there is a recording somewhere.
It's a pretty good presentation.
Although I'll toot our own horn and say we did a pretty phenomenal job in presenting our case on it. We lost.
Yeah, we lost.
It got voted
not that good, I guess.
Not good enough to win. So we ended up having to turn that into a month-to-month. And at this point, we're no longer managing that property. But what we're saying is just like, yeah, you definitely want to make sure you're doing that research in advance. And we show people methodically how to walk through that, because ultimately, if you're going to be getting into this business, you got to know the rules of what sandbox you're playing in, because you don't want to go through the process of doing all the work, getting the property set up, to then, at the 11th hour, have the rug pulled up for money, and then we're back to square one again.
Especially if you're purchasing property, like you want to triple check and make 100% sure you're doing that.
Yeah, no, 100%. These are all spot on. And guys, we're always going to encourage folks on the channel to do their own research. We can bring as many resources and experts in a particular subject matter on the channel all day long. We're always going to say, go out and do your own digging. There's tons of research online. The short-term rental space is huge, so there's plenty of articles, plenty of research that you can do, or you can just have not a do it yourself, but you can come to folks who are actual experts, because if you make a simple mistake up front, that domino effect can be very severe, especially like you said, Katrina, if you're out there, buying. So rules and regulations are constantly changing. If you don't know where to look, find out where to look, or lean on experts like this. I'll give you an example. We do a lot in Orlando, Florida. In Orlando, Florida, literally they're building neighborhoods that are just built for STR. Well, the theme parks are there, so there's other markets that are doing the exact opposite, and they're starting to regulate these. So you want to take a look at that. Kind of secondly, another thing that you want to look at in that kind of analysis up front is going to be, a specific market, not just based on rules, regulations, and permitting, but seasonality, bookability, right? Are there local attractions? Is it, are there two distinct, windows for booking that are going to keep your business consistent throughout the year? Or is there just one, and then it's feast or famine? Can you guys kind of speak on that?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you brought that up. And when I said at the beginning, when you're looking at a place, let the numbers speak for itself. We use tools, different strategies, even just looking on the Airbnb platform itself, on VRBO, looking to see what the competition is charging in those different seasons to give you an idea. if it's going to be good year round, right? Especially when we tend to find seasonality the highest in tourism type areas, right? So maybe it's like a beach location, but is there something in winter, right? Do they have ice fishing? Do they have snowmobiling? Like, is there something to combat it, right? So it's just really important to look at all factors, and we definitely take that in. We don't look at it as, yes, we just got a booking the other day for summer in one of a tourism type areas in a mountain town.
Yeah.
It was one of the highest bookings we had. It was at $1,462 a night, which was incredible, right? And it's a condo. It's not a house. But it's in a mountain town. But we don't get those in the winter. But the thing is like you look at like on a yearly scope and what the costs are to run it, and then does the math make sense?
Yeah, one of the most important questions you want to ask yourself, and it's kind of a lens and a framework that it just really simplifies the whole process when you ask the simple question. Is this commercially viable?
Yeah.
Right? Is it commercially viable now? Is it going to be commercially viable during the winter season and during the summer? Like, you want to base all that out and do that analysis up front, because again, especially like if, while we do specialize in teaching people how to simply control other people's properties to generate income, we have a number of students that say, I totally get what you guys are saying, but I really want to buy properties, and that's totally fine. And we can cater to that. But again, there is more risk inherent in actually owning a property, for the simple reason that if something goes wrong, little harder to wiggle out of a mortgage than it is a lease agreement or a partnership agreement, right? The bank's not going to be quite as understanding.
So in our portfolio, we have everything. We have everything from ownership. So we own some of our properties. We do rental arbitrage on a portion of our properties. And we also do the partnership and management of the properties. Correct. So we actually have experience in all different areas. And it's just kind of, not to have the eggs in one basket for us. And it's just to really have that breadth of experience and really what deal makes sense for that situation.
Yeah, I love that diversification. So what you're saying, or what I'm hearing, is that when these folks are kind of under your tent in your camp, any deal that they're really coming across, you guys can work with them on really kind of helping to take that down. Guys, if you're watching, you already want information, you want to talk to someone on Michael and Katrina's team, go ahead and email bnb@vipfinancialeducation.com. Include your first, your last name, the best email. We'll go ahead and drop their playlist below if you have not seen them here on the channel before. Guys, do not miss out on this STR space. It's something I'm putting a lot of my time, energy, and money into as well. We've got folks like Michael and Katrina that are talking to our audience, showing them how to do this. We would love a couple tips and tricks from you guys. You guys are 7-figure hosts, and we love to give kind of freebie information to our audience. How do you set your Airbnb up? So you got it. How do you make it just look spectacular? Is it just going to be the pictures? Is it going to be staging? Can you give a couple tricks on that?
It's a really good question. It's an important question because, earlier you cited the fact that there's a lot of new entrants coming into the market. There's a lot of new hosts, and we've gone on record predicting, and it's actually just starting to happen now. We're going to start having institutional players entering the STR space for the first time. So although this is a positive sign and a good thing for the industry overall, it means there's more competition coming. So when there's more competition entering the space, you have to be very thoughtful and diligent as to how are you going to make your listing, your property, stand out from the herd of hosts that are coming in. And, a couple of years ago, actually a few years ago, you could make a lot of money on these platforms by just simply putting up any ho-hum listing and, just taking a few pictures, having some crappy IKEA furniture.
We like to say grandma's furniture.
The picture where you can see yourself in the mirror taking it.
A few years ago, that worked fine. And honestly, you didn't have to put a lot of effort in. Nowadays, if you don't have, you pretty much have to have a very thoughtful design in order to just compete. I'm not saying do well, I'm just saying compete, right? So a few things on that as far as what we think about and different things we like to focus on when we're setting up a new property is, and we hit on this with our students all the time, how can you be unique and stand out? So what does that mean? Well, what kind of design can you incorporate that no one else in your market is thinking about? Maybe you can have a themed property. Maybe you can have certain amenities that no one else is offering.
Yeah. And I think a big thing for this is just having it consistent throughout the entire property. Like, what's that pizzazz? Like, what is going to catch that eye? You only get one photo, on your listing when they're scrolling through the different listings on Airbnb. You got that hero photo right there. What are you going to, like, what's going to pop out, right? So you really get that one chance to make that first impression. So, I mean, really, when you're looking at design, just kind of coming back to basics of, you know what, you can hire an interior designer, or if you're pretty good at it, look at Pinterest, look at those other kind of sites, look at your competition, what they're doing, and then do something better. So even just basic stuff, guys, like putting plants in your listing, having greenery, having that contrast. And we say fake plants again, because we're not going to put that on guest of water plants, but fake plants, having, a really bright, modern kind of space tends to do well. White sheets, like white towels, just like very bright. Just really looking at that exclusive kind of experience for someone to go in. All the linens are matching. And I think when Michael said having that pizzazz or something that just like stands out, having like a feature wall in your space is really big. And we tend to do that, like something that's really unique and different. So I don't know if you've heard of like board and batten type walls or something, having a shiplap wall, even doing, and those are a little bit more money, like a brick wall or something, even just doing wallpaper on one wall, something that's really unique. And I know people are like, seriously, wallpaper, but really cool. It can really pop a space and make it different.
And it doesn't have to be like super elaborate. We have a colleague that's in the space, and he has a listing, he calls it the unicorn house. And, I can tell you, just from looking at the listing, the property.
I'm visualizing right now.
The property in and of itself is
fairly simple,
but in one of the bedrooms, he just simply has a wall decal with this giant on the wall. A lot of pinks, a lot of like soft.
He has a unicorn lamp and like unicorn pillows. It's just like, it's a theme, but it's so different. Who has a unicorn like listing?
Right.
Yeah. So, and he charges like $500-600 a night. He does incredibly well with it because people think, I want to stay at the unicorn property. And that really sticks in people's minds. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's cool too, because, you will get multiple stays from guests. So they might stay there, have a phenomenal experience with it. And then the next year, hey, let's go back and do another year at the unicorn home, something that's going to make it stand out. You definitely have to differentiate yourself these days with all the competition out there, and appreciate the pro tips, guys. And it sounds elementary, some of the things that we're talking about, but they make a big difference in your revenue. In that same vein, what's an absolute no-no? What do you absolutely not want to do to your space?
I would say a big thing is just not like almost having it like a bachelor pad. Do you know what I mean? When I say that, when I say having it like a bachelor, almost going too minimalistic, like we'd like to do a lot of throws and pillows and like having things like that. If you literally just have like 2 pillows or 1 pillow and it's just like a blanket, like it's not going to cut it. Taking your own photos, do not do that with the space. And just not having the basics even in there. So enough plates, enough cutlery, wine glasses versus water glasses. Like you need to have all those details. Like we have full checklists we give our students of all the details that you need. Especially now with, the pandemic and endemic, like having cleaning supplies, like everything like that. I guess a big thing, and I guess a tip on there is not having keyless entry. So if you're still giving out keys to people, like that's a big no-no, because people are used to just going in and out of a property with like a code and just having a key, like it's not secure. So you just want to make sure you have it set up appropriately and ready to take guests. You don't have to meet them in person. I would say is a big thing when setting up a property.
Yeah, we had a call the other day with our interior designer, and she said something that really stuck out to us. She said, look, if a property looks like a rental property, and we all know what that means, if it looks like a rental, it will get treated like a rental. It will attract a certain kind of guest that will treat it like a rental property.
Like, oops, I spilled wine. Oh, well, it's a rental.
If a property looks like a home, like someone's home, they will treat it like their home, and you'll get a much better guest. You'll have a much better experience as a host and the guest as well, right? So a lot of these things that we're talking about, I know a lot of it might seem incredibly basic, it really does come down to the fundamental things that really build that consistency. Because that's the thing with Airbnb, is that there really is no consistency with it, right? You might stay in an Airbnb that's absolutely amazing and incredible, and then you might go to another one and it's an absolutely terrible experience, right? So it's really important to incorporate these different things. And again, really focusing on that experience, having something that's incredibly clean, inviting, and it's something that people are going to talk about and remember when they come back.
And rebook. Yeah.
Okay, so there was two. We talked about obviously the aesthetics of the property itself. We talked about the keyless entry. Can I squeeze one more out of you for our audience?
Having amenities, I would say, is huge. So, I mean, everyone has the same four walls in a place, but it's the small details and those amenities. So having
maybe a foosball table,
so
things.
I'll give you a good example of what we did on a number of our properties last year. So when we were actually doing some analysis on our own market, one of the things we realized is a lot of the highest grossing listings in our city, they all had, I mean, there were some differences, of course, but one of the most common things we noticed was
common amenity
that we noticed, without question, nearly all of them had hot tubs. We're like, well, that's interesting. But the problem was with the pandemic was hot tubs
were sold out.
They were sold out and they were stupidly expensive. So we're like, well, how can we bring this to our guests without breaking the bank? It's like an average hot tub, even like a 4 to 6 person one, was like $10,000.
No, $10,000 to $14,000 for very basic, and it was like 6 weeks behind. Like, it was crazy to try and get these in.
Yeah. Right. So what we actually looked at was a little bit of a hack. We actually found you could use inflatable hot tubs, and they were like 1/10 the cost, and they were readily available. So we tried it out on a couple, and we
tested it out. Yeah.
We noticed immediately a huge difference in revenue. So we're like
double the revenue.
So
it's essentially not just a difference, double the revenue. Yeah.
So just something simple like that, because again, a lot of the competition in our market, a lot of people don't want to put in that work. They're like, well, yeah, maybe a hot tub's nice, but I've got to do the maintenance on it.
Yeah, you do.
You do. Yeah. But again, that's why we talk about building a team, having consistent people that can come in and take these things off your hand. So you don't have to get involved in the day-to-day, but you're able to provide something a lot of hosts are either not capable or willing to provide. And that's how you stand out and really command the lion's share in your nightly rate.
No, I appreciate that tip, guys. There's multiple ways to skin the cat in the STR space. Matthew will go ahead and drop a link to his video that he's done recently talking about lavish keys, and that's going to be kind of a turnkey management program for people that don't want to have any day-to-day operation with either their own short-term rentals or don't want to get involved in the STR space on that day-to-day basis, or are converting long-term rentals into short-term rentals, and again, want a hands-off investment approach. And then we've got BNB Bootcamp with Michael and Katrina, which is a phenomenal platform. It's for people that want to get involved. They want to be involved in day-to-day operations. Obviously, there's team building, and that's part of your guys' training. You guys are just time and time again producing wildly successful testimonials and students from your program. If people are ready, how do they get involved, and what does that look like? What would next steps be?
Yeah. So essentially, if you're ready to go and you're like, hey, I really can do this, I want to start building having that own cash flow, having back my time again, and I really want to start building this and work with people that have done it, for over 3.5 years, teaching thousands of people how to do this. Definitely just reach out to BNB Bootcamp at vipfinancial.com. I believe the link is below this video, and send us an email. Either us or the team will get back to you, and we'll get you scheduled in on an onboarding call. That onboarding call is really important just to see if this is a good fit for you, right? Like, this is not for everyone, guys. And we don't sugarcoat it. We're very straightforward. We want to make sure this is exactly what you want. Really, from there, if you're ready to go, what it looks like is you'll get signed up for the program. We'll send you homework right away, and we'll get you logins to the course. So it's a self-directed course, and also every week you get a touch point with us and the team to make sure that you're moving along. And this is a 4-month program that we're offering.
Yes, this is what we call the Elite Masterclass. So it's actually the last time we are going to be doing our 4-month masterclasses. We're making some updates.
Exciting changes,
but
I've heard by popular demand.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is the last time, legitimately, not false scarcity, that we are doing a 4-month masterclass. We are only going to be accepting 10 people in total. And then once the spots are full, we'll close enrollment, and then we'll certainly announce when the next available round of coaching is going to be made available to the public. But this is it. So
typically for the 4-month program, it's quite intense. It's really starting from the basics all the way to building a property, getting up and running, and then growing and scaling, getting your team automating and everything. So it's that hand-holding process all the way through to the 4 months. So with our program, we typically charge $16,000 US. However, because of a relationship with Michael Matthew and the VIP Financial Education Channel, we do discount it down to $12K. Okay, and that is, guys, last program for this, and that's just what we have as a relationship with VIP.
Yeah. So again, covering the very basics, we're going to show you everything from how to get your business fundamentals set up, how to get incorporated, how to get your website up, to then going out, approaching property owners, knowing what properties you want to be targeting,
finding winning properties,
which ones you want to avoid, how to get your property staged, designed, unique, so that it stands out amongst the competitors that you're going to be competing against, how to do pricing, how to optimize your listing, how to run your business financial successfully, so if you're actually being profitable or what you need to do in order to make that a reality for you. And that's just kind of scratching the surface of what it's like we said, it's a very intense 4-month program. It's the last time we are going to be doing it in its current form before we make some updates for the next round of students that will be coming through in the future.
So guys, obviously there's going to be a cost associated with this. No business startup, whether it's a coaching or a brick and mortar location, you're going to get for free. So invest in yourself, invest with experts that are going to help you make far fewer mistakes that are obviously going to just be more costly in the short and the long term. There's a cost involved here, but I understand you guys have a funding resource for people that can utilize that for OPM. Maybe they don't have, great credit. Maybe they don't have the capital to move forward with you, but you do have an option for those folks?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, just very recently, within the last couple of months, we've established a relationship with a third-party funding source. So what's happened in the past is someone might have the capital to get their business going, but they may not have the capital to invest in themselves and gain the knowledge they need in order to have success with the opportunity as we've laid it out. So with our new partnership, what we can do is, if there's any concerns about the nature or the amount of the investment that we're asking here, we can actually space that out over a much longer period of time at a very low, affordable monthly payment at very reasonable terms. So it just makes it more accessible to a wider audience of people, so that if that's the only real barrier from them getting started, we have a connection and a source that can make that easier and lower the barrier of entry. Then
you have the capital to invest in your business, really grow and scale quicker, and it's just a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, I love that you guys have that a resource now. So thanks for sharing. Guys, any other parting shots? And Katrina, you said something there, and I always like to ask, who's this not for? You said, look, this is not for everyone. And that's the reality, guys. We put a lot of videos out here. Everything is not going to be a good fit. In fact, most are not, but some may. And it's at least worth a consideration and a free consultation call. It doesn't cost you a nickel to talk to these folks if you are interested in potentially pursuing it, and they'll give you some more info. So Katrina, who should discount themselves right now?
Yeah, this is big, guys. Coming into starting a business is not easy. It's simple the way we coach and train and go through the steps, but it is not easy. There's going to be hard work. There's going to be highs and lows throughout the business. It's like the roller coaster, but we're going to help guide you through that. So this is not for someone who doesn't like to put the work in, can't think outside the box, really try to do things on their own first, not showing up to calls, not actually putting the work in, the time in to actually do this. And that's important to us. And if you can commit to doing this, there's people that are interested versus committed. If you're interested, into starting a business, it's like you might need to delve a little bit deeper to actually be committed, because it's a long-term endeavor when you're looking at this. Yes, it's a 4-month program that we're doing, but it doesn't stop at the end of the 4 months. This is for years and years to create a sustainable business that can be running by itself without your involvement, and can be passive, but you have to put in that legwork at the beginning.
Yeah, and I mean, Katrina just hit on a very important word there. We always encourage anyone that's coming into this to have a long-term outlook and a long-term mindset because the reality is businesses take time to build. If you could do it overnight, I mean, everyone would do that, but that's just not reality. That's just not what happens.
We do shorten
and it's not sustainable.
Totally.
kind of
Yeah.
flashlighting about it.
Anyone that's looking for get rich quick, solve all your problems in 30 days, take a magic pill, shiny
Silver
object.
bullet.
Just,
Right.
just, please don't take a consultation call, because it's just not going to be for you,
But if you're ready and you're committed, you want to learn the shortest path to get there, avoid all the pitfalls, and really, take the action, then you'll be a good fit.
Yeah. If you want to join a like-minded community of people that might be in a 9-to-5 job now, but want to set themselves up so that in the future they can walk away from that and be fully self-sufficient, self-reliant, control their own income, control their own financial future. That's what we provide in the BNB Bootcamp, is a method to do that. Not the only method, but a very reliable, proven system that's worked for countless people that we've worked with.
Yeah. So guys, if you're watching and you want to learn how to make an extra thousands, $10,000s of dollars per month, and we've seen testimonials here on the channel of folks that are making far much more than that in a relatively short window of time, don't miss this opportunity. Don't kick yourself a year from now, when this opportunity does not exist anymore, and then you're wondering why you never got involved in the STR space as it's continuing to blow up. Obviously, go out there and do your own research. There's tons of online information that you can look at. You can go out there and absolutely try and go it alone. Our recommendation is to always have guidance from experts, which is why we continue to bring these folks back here on the channel. So guys, thanks for joining us here on the VIP Financial Ed YouTube channel, where we talk about all things credit, capital, and cash flow. Michael and Katrina, thanks for joining us here again. And until next time, everyone, take care. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Michael.
Thanks so much.